Imagine a world without instant communication, without reliable weather forecasts, without the comforting certainty of a heated home just a short drive away. That was the stark, everyday reality for countless individuals pushing the very boundaries of civilization, venturing bravely into the raw, untamed wilderness. In the unforgiving embrace of the wild, where towering peaks meet dense forests and raging rivers carve their relentless paths, humanity has always, instinctively, sought refuge. But what happens when the elements turn violently against you? When a sudden, brutal storm descends, and survival hangs by the thinnest of threads, often in temperatures that could claim a life in mere hours. Today, we are going to embark on a compelling journey back in time, to an era when every single night spent under the vast, star-strewn sky was an inherent gamble, and a simple, often crude shelter, meticulously crafted from the very land itself, could mean the profound difference between enduring life and a swift, frozen grave. We are here to explore the forgotten frontier shelters, ingenious, often humble, yet incredibly robust structures that, against all odds, saved countless lives and, in doing so, undeniably paved the way for westward expansion and the forging of new nations. The harsh realities of the frontier. A constant battle against the elements. Step into the worn moccasins or heavy leather boots of an early American explorer, a solitary trapper, or a determined pioneer. Their world was one of immediate, often brutal, and unforgiving consequences. There was no advanced Gore-Tex to repel the driving sleet that could chill you to the bone, no precise GPS to guide them through disorienting blizzards or dense fog, and certainly no instant communication to call for help when disaster inevitably struck, miles from any human presence. All they possessed was raw courage, an indomitable grit, and the ever-present, terrifyingly tangible threat of exposure. For those pushing relentlessly westward, whether they were charting unknown territories, setting traps for valuable furs, prospecting for elusive gold, or simply seeking new, fertile land to call home, every journey was an expedition into the profound, often hostile, unknown. They faced blizzards so severe they could bury a man alive under feet of suffocating snow, scorching deserts that could dehydrate a body in mere hours under the relentless sun, and torrential, unending rains that transformed well-worn trails into impassable, treacherous, muddy traps. Beyond the immediate volatile weather, there was the constant, grinding battle against debilitating fatigue, gnawing hunger, debilitating injury, and the immense psychological toll of profound isolation. Without adequate and readily available shelter, even a seemingly minor twisted ankle, a sudden drastic drop in temperature, or a relentless, soaking downpour could spell absolute disaster, transforming a challenging journey into a desperate, agonizing fight for survival. The ability to quickly and effectively construct a shelter wasn't merely a useful skill. It was a fundamental, non-negotiable requirement for anyone daring enough to venture beyond the last vestiges of settled lands. The dangers were not just meteorological. The frontier was a tapestry of threats. Dangerous wildlife like bears and wolves, treacherous river crossings, and unpredictable terrain that could hide steep cliffs or sudden sinkholes. Disease, too, was a constant companion, with no medical aid readily available. A simple fever or infection could quickly escalate into a life-threatening crisis, far from any form of care. Adding to this was the sheer isolation. Days, weeks, or even months could pass without encountering another human being. This profound solitude, coupled with the relentless physical demands and constant threats, put immense psychological pressure on individuals. The mental fortitude required to face such odds, day after day, was as vital as any physical skill. Every sunrise brought new challenges, and every sunset marked the end of another arduous day, forcing these early adventurers to rely solely on their wits, their tools, and the ingenious methods of shelter building that were often the thin line between making it through the night and succumbing to the unforgiving wild. This was not just about survival, it was about enduring, about persisting against truly overwhelming forces. And the simple act of creating a warm, dry space became the ultimate expression of defiance against nature's most severe trials. The wisdom of indigenous shelters, millennia of ecological knowledge and adaptation. Long before European settlers ever set foot on these vast and diverse lands, indigenous peoples had, for millennia, meticulously mastered the intricate art of living in profound harmony with their specific environments. Their shelters were not simply temporary structures thrown together. They were true masterpieces of sustainable engineering, meticulously adapted to particular climates, specific available materials, and varying nomadic or stationary lifestyles. These were designs born from an intimate, generational knowledge of local resources, predictable seasonal changes, and prevailing wind patterns. Consider the lean-to, for instance. This deceptively simple yet remarkably effective design, often capable of being constructed in a matter of minutes or a few hours, could be a literal lifesaver. It involved leaning a few sturdy poles against a natural support, like a fallen log or a strong tree, or against another strategically placed pole, and then covering this framework with readily available bark, branches, large leaves, or even animal hides. It instantly provided crucial, immediate protection from driving wind, chilling rain, and often a surprising amount of cold. Its genius lay in its efficiency, the simplicity of its construction, and the universal accessibility of its materials. It offered immediate, critical relief when time was undeniably of the essence. Then, there were the more substantial and sophisticated structures like the wickiup, also frequently spelled wickiup, a versatile dwelling often constructed by various nomadic tribes across different North American regions. These ingenious dome-shaped dwellings were typically made from supple saplings, carefully bent and securely tied together to form a remarkably sturdy and resilient framework. This frame was then covered with multiple layers of brush, reeds, woven grass mats, or animal hides, creating a surprisingly effective insulation against both the searing heat of summer and the biting cold of winter. While substantial, they were often lightweight enough to be partially disassembled and moved by the tribe as they followed game or seasonal resources, yet they were remarkably sturdy enough to withstand fierce storms and powerful winds. These were not just temporary camps. They were meticulously designed, ecologically integrated survival havens, perfected over countless generations of living intimately with the land. The profound, practical wisdom embedded in their design was truly invaluable, and many early frontiersmen, through observation and necessity, wisely learned from these ancient techniques, often adopting them wholesale to survive and navigate unfamiliar, challenging territories. Pioneer ingenuity, the dugout and the sod house. Building with the earth itself. As tenacious pioneers pushed relentlessly onto the vast, open, and often starkly treeless plains of the American West, they encountered a formidable new challenge, a severe and debilitating lack of timber. You simply could not build a traditional log cabin where there were no trees for hundreds of miles in any direction. This critical scarcity forced an incredible burst of raw ingenuity and radical adaptation, giving rise to two truly ingenious, yet now largely forgotten, immensely life-saving shelter types that utilized the very earth beneath their feet: the dugout and the sod house. A dugout was precisely what its name implies, a home quite literally dug into the side of a hill, a riverbank, or a natural ravine. The surrounding earth itself formed the robust and naturally insulating walls, and often the roof, providing an astonishing level of thermal insulation against extreme temperatures, whether it was the searing, oppressive heat of a prairie summer or the sub-zero, biting cold of a winter blizzard. They were deceptively simple in their concept, relatively quick to construct with basic shovels and axes, and offered immediate, undeniable protection from the most severe elements. While often dark, damp, and prone to the occasional unwelcome visit from a snake or rodent seeking shelter, they were absolute lifeboats in the seemingly endless, exposed sea of the open prairie. Many early homesteaders, who literally had nothing but the land itself to build with, owed their very survival to these subterranean dwellings, which offered a desperate but profoundly effective refuge from the unforgiving caprices of the weather. Then came the iconic sod house, a defining symbol of prairie settlement. For those settling on flat plains where hills were scarce, the brilliant solution was quite literally underfoot. Pioneers would meticulously cut thick blocks of tough prairie sod, often affectionately referred to as Nebraska marble, due to its surprising density, strength, and durability, and then stack them methodically like colossal, earthy bricks. These incredibly thick, earthy walls, often 2 or even 3 feet deep, created astonishingly well-insulated structures. In the oppressive heat of summer, the massive thermal mass of the thick earth kept the interiors remarkably cool and bearable. In the brutal grip of winter, they efficiently trapped precious warmth. Though they certainly had their practical drawbacks, they could be prone to insect and rodent infestations, and roofs often made of sod laid over branches could sometimes leak after heavy rains. Sod houses represented an unparalleled example of human adaptation to a challenging and resource-limited environment. They were, in essence, the ultimate green building erected long before the term even existed, and they housed and protected countless pioneering families, serving as their unwavering shield against devastating blizzards, rampant prairie fires, and the relentless, searing sun. The trapper's cabin, a solitary bastion in the vast wilds. Further north, and deep within the dense, often impenetrable evergreen forests that stretched for hundreds, even thousands of miles, the trapper's life was one of extreme isolation, relentless hardship, and profound, unwavering self-reliance. Their shelters, though often temporary or seasonally occupied, were absolutely crucial for their very survival during the long, brutal winter months when furs were prime and conditions were most severe. The classic trapper's cabin was a marvel of minimalist design and absolute practical necessity. Often just large enough for 1 or 2 people to comfortably turn around in, these small, sturdy log structures were built with remarkable speed from local timber, utilizing readily available materials from the surrounding forest. Gaps between the rough-hewn logs were meticulously chinked with moss, mud, clay, or other natural materials for insulation, ensuring a tight, warm, and remarkably draft-free interior. These cabins were not built for luxury or comfort in the modern sense. They were built specifically for survival and utility. They had to be robust enough to withstand immense snowfalls that could crush lesser structures, ferocious winds that howled through the forest, and the relentless, pervasive pressure of freezing temperatures that could turn exposed flesh to ice. Crucially, every trapper's cabin nearly always included a simple, yet remarkably efficient fireplace or a crude wood stove for warmth and cooking. This was the absolute lifeline in the frigid, desolate wilderness. These cabins were not just places to sleep or to store valuable furs. They were vital, strategic outposts, providing not only essential physical warmth and a dry place to mend worn gear, but also a critical psychological refuge from the vast, silent, and often overwhelmingly lonely wilderness that surrounded them. They served as tiny points of light and humanity in a boundless sea of darkness, offering a desperate but vital sense of security and respite. Without these humble but truly indispensable shelters, the lucrative fur trade, and indeed much of the early exploration, mapping, and expansion across North America, would have been an entirely impossible and unimaginably brutal endeavor. The construction of these cabins often involved an intimate knowledge of the local environment. Trappers knew which trees offered the best, straightest logs, how to fell them with basic tools, and how to notch them precisely for stability, without nails or complex joinery. They understood the importance of a good foundation, even if it was just flat stones, to keep the logs off the damp ground. The roof, often a simple lean-to style or a low-pitched gable, would be covered with bark, split shingles, or even packed earth to shed snow and rain. Smoke holes or rudimentary chimneys were essential for ventilation, preventing carbon monoxide poisoning while still retaining precious heat. These cabins were not just shelters, they were testaments to sheer self-reliance and ingenious problem-solving. Each one represented countless hours of grueling labor, a deep understanding of bushcraft, and an unyielding will to survive against the harshest natural conditions. They were sanctuaries in a world where every mile brought new dangers, offering a brief, precious moment of safety and warmth before the next day's daunting journey into the wild. Emergency bivouacs and snow shelters. Ingenuity in desperation. But what about those terrifying, sudden moments when a planned shelter wasn't an option? When an unexpected, life-threatening storm rolled in, or a debilitating injury left someone stranded miles from any known refuge? The unforgiving frontier didn't allow for hesitation or a moment of indecision. It demanded quick thinking, raw ingenuity, and an immediate instinctive ability to improvise. Early frontiersmen, often drawing heavily on indigenous knowledge passed down through countless generations, became true masters of emergency bivouacs, temporary shelters thrown together in desperate circumstances, but built with a profound, practical knowledge that could genuinely mean the difference between life and death. Consider the debris hut, a deceptively simple yet highly effective emergency shelter. This involves piling a large mound of branches, leaves, grass, and other available natural debris over a pre-built A-frame or ridgepole framework, then meticulously hollowing out a protected space inside. It might look like nothing more than a random pile of forest litter from the outside, but when properly constructed with a thick, insulating layer of organic material, it could offer surprising warmth and critical protection from a sudden, life-threatening storm, efficiently trapping precious body heat and keeping brutal wind and soaking rain at bay. And in the frozen, unforgiving north, or during sudden, blinding blizzards that could reduce visibility to mere feet, the snow cave or the quinzee, a variation built from a piled-up mound of snow, was an absolute, undisputed lifesaver. These incredible shelters, built by carefully hollowing out a dense snowdrift or by piling massive amounts of snow and allowing it to solidify before expertly excavating the interior, could be astonishingly warm. They often maintained interior temperatures significantly above freezing, sometimes even reaching comfortable levels, even when outside temperatures plummeted far below 0 degrees Fahrenheit. They were, in essence, improvised igloos for those without the specialized skills or time to build traditional ice block structures. These weren't intended as long-term homes. They were desperate, last-ditch measures of pure survival. but they were measures that proved to be the profound difference between life and death for countless individuals, powerfully demonstrating that sometimes the most effective protection comes from the very elements you are fighting against. Enduring lessons for today. The timeless art of self-reliance. These remarkable, often overlooked frontier shelters are far more than just intriguing historical footnotes or quaint relics of a bygone era. They stand as powerful, tangible reminders of profound human resilience, incredible ingenuity, and our deep, inherent connection to the natural world. They teach us the enduring value of simplicity, the critical importance of resourcefulness in the face of adversity, and the fundamental necessity of intimately understanding the environment that surrounds us. While we now have access to advanced materials, cutting-edge technology, and sophisticated outdoor gear that makes wilderness travel safer and more comfortable than ever before, the core principles that underpinned these frontier survival techniques remain timeless and universally applicable. The fundamental ability to quickly and effectively build a basic shelter, to understand the dynamics of wind and heat transfer, to find and skillfully utilize natural materials for protection from the elements. These are skills that are as vitally important today, in a true wilderness emergency, as they were centuries ago. They are a profound testament to the undeniable fact that at our very core, humans are adaptable, resourceful, and capable of overcoming immense challenges when faced with the absolute non-negotiable necessity of survival. So, the next time you find yourself out in the wild, perhaps admiring its raw, untamed beauty, or even just pausing to think about the incredible pioneers and indigenous peoples who came before us, take a moment to truly appreciate the astonishing resourcefulness and raw courage that allowed them to not just survive, but to profoundly thrive in the face of unimaginable challenges. The humble dugout, the resilient sod house, the versatile lean-to, the desperate yet effective snow cave. These weren't just simple structures. They were profound monuments to human perseverance, ingenuity, and the timeless, enduring art of self-reliance. What forgotten survival skills or historical innovations intrigue you the most? Do you have any modern wilderness survival stories that echo these ancient, ingenious methods? Let me know your thoughts and experiences in the comments section below. If you found this journey into the past fascinating and inspiring, please hit that like button, share this video with fellow history buffs, outdoor enthusiasts, and anyone who appreciates the sheer power of the human spirit. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling explorations into the wild, the wonderful, and the truly forgotten aspects of our history and our world.